Most insecurity doesn't shout, it leaks. You hear it in the way someone corrects you on tiny details that don't matter. You see it when a joke about them lands a little too close and they overreact. Detecting hidden insecurity isn't about diagnosing people. It's about reading patterns that repeat across situations. I'll walk you through the signals that show up in words, tone, body language, and choices, plus what research says is going on underneath. And I'll show you how to respond without escalating things. Start with inconsistency between confidence and comfort. A person can sound certain but look tense, shoulders high, jaw tight, micro pauses before answering simple questions. Be careful not to overtrust micro expressions as a magic lie detector. The science here is mixed. Decades of pop psychology made micro expressions famous, but research finds their reliability for detecting deception is limited and often overstated. Treat fleeting facial twitches as one small clue, not the whole story. If the face says "I'm fine," but the body shows bracing and breath holding, you're likely seeing a protective shell around insecurity rather than calm confidence. Next, look for overcompensation. Overcompensation is behavior that overshoots the target. The casual conversation becomes a resume recital. The friendly debate turns into a courtroom argument. The small win is paraded like a lifetime achievement. What's interesting is that one common overcompensation, humblebragging, backfires. Studies show that bragging disguised as a complaint or false modesty makes others like and trust you less than straightforward bragging. So when someone laces complaints with status signals, they may be attempting to protect shaky self-worth while trying to earn approval, and the result usually lands poorly with listeners. You'll also notice a tug-of-war with compliments. People with sturdy self-esteem usually accept praise with a simple thanks. Hidden insecurity often reacts in extremes, either rejecting the compliment it was nothing, anyone could do it, or grabbing it too tightly by repeating it, forwarding it, or circling back to it later for reassurance. That hunger for confirmation can feel like neediness or like oddly frequent status updates about their achievements. Again, research on self-presentation suggests sincerity beats managed impressions. When external proof is needed to validate claims, observers respond better to modesty or to third-party endorsements than to self. Watch how someone handles boundaries and feedback. Insecure people can swing between people-pleasing and control. The people-pleasing side looks like automatic yeses, excessive apologizing, and preemptive smoothing over of tensions that haven't even happened. The controlling side appears when their identity feels threatened. Nitpicking your choices, insisting on the right way, or shutting down dissent. Both are protection strategies. One trades autonomy for approval. The other tries to force certainty. If you see both in the same person, depending on who's in the room, you're not looking at confidence. You're looking at fragile self-protection. Listen for competitive comparison in casual moments. Hidden insecurity often needs a ruler. If you mention a project, they mention a bigger one. If you know a useful fact, they add 3 more. If someone else gets attention, they quickly top it or deflate it. This isn't always malice. It's a reflex built on the assumption that worth is scarce. One dead giveaway is one-up empathy, where your story triggers a better story of theirs, shifting the spotlight back to them under the cover of relating. Over time, the pattern reveals itself. They can't leave a win alone, yours or theirs, without remeasuring. Pay attention to how they treat status when nobody's watching. A secure person can admire someone else's skill without feeling smaller. Insecurity struggles to do that. You might see subtle digs at absent people, quick critiques of others' opportunities, or cynicism targeted at achievements that mirror their own goals. Online, that can look like alternating self-promotion with casual complaints that just happen to showcase status, classic humble bragging again, which research finds to be common and ineffective for winning respect or liking. Perfectionism is another mask. There's healthy striving, and then there's refusing to ship the work unless it has the untouchable. Hidden insecurity equates mistakes with exposure, so deadlines slip, drafts multiply, and feedback becomes scary because it threatens the image of having it all together. Ironically, when perfectionism is challenged, you may see a defensive flip. It has to be perfect, turns into it wasn't important anyway, which is a classic way to protect self-worth by moving the goalposts after the fact. Attachment patterns add nuance to all of this. People high in attachment anxiety often worry about being abandoned or rejected. Their insecurity shows up as reassurance-seeking hypervigilance to social cues and big reactions to small changes in tone or timing. People high in attachment avoidance tend to downplay needs, keep distance and control closeness. Their insecurity shows up as cool detachment, quick withdrawal when intimacy rises, and skepticism about others' motives. Both patterns correlate with lower trust across relationships, though avoidance tends to predict distrust more strongly in meta-analytic work. Reading these patterns helps you separate rude from protective and respond with boundaries or reassurance as the situation calls for it. In somme peopli grandiosity is the armor. The mask model of narcissism proposes that showy self-enhancement can sit atop fragile self. That doesn't mean everyone who likes attention is secretly miserable. It means that when self-worth depends on applause, image management ramps up, and criticism becomes intolerable. You'll see hypersensitivity to slights, strategic name-dropping, and a need to be the exception to rules. The outside looks big. The inside is unstable. Research comparing explicit and implicit self-esteem and narcissism captures this tension. Bold self-use can coexist with fragility that flares when the audience stops clapping. If you notice charm that curdles into contempt the moment admiration fades, you're likely seeing the armor, not strength. Language gives away a lot. Listen for absolutists, always, never, everyone, no one. These words simplify a messy world so it feels more controllable. Notice rhetorical questions used as weapons. You really thought that was a good idea? That construction lets them signal superiority without owning a direct statement. Low-key, too, for excessive hedging when they want to disagree. Layers of maybe and kind of and just because conflict risks disapproval. On the flip side, some insecurities use certainty as camouflage, declaring firm opinions on thin evidence to avoid the vulnerability of I don't know. Social risk-taking is another tell. Secure people can try, fail, and try again because mistakes don't threaten their identity. Hidden insecurity prefers low-risk moves in high-visibility spaces. You'll see safe choices, borrowed opinions from high status, or performance only in domains where they know they'll win. When they can't avoid risk, they may seek excuses in advance. I didn't prepare much, I barely slept, so any failure can be blamed on the handicap instead of the self. That's self-protection, not laziness. Notice how they treat your time. Chronic lateness with thin justifications. Frequent last-minute cancellations framed as emergencies only they can handle. Or monopolizing meetings with tangents that spotlight them. All of these can signal a need to feel important that outruns consideration for others. Respect for schedules and shed space is often an indirect measure of security. People who don't need a constant status infusion tend to keep better boundaries. Watch reactions to others' emotions. Insecure people can read strong emotion as judgment of them. If you're sad, they feel blamed. If you're excited, they feel left out. If you're proud, they feel overshadowed. The result is emotional hijacking. They pivot from your feeling to their defense. You'll hear not everything is about you, but the pattern shows the opposite. Everything becomes about protecting their standing. By contrast, secure people let feelings breathe without turning them into a referendum. A simple test is the small loss moment. Share a minor mistake you made. A secure person meets it with curiosity or empathy. Hidden insecurity often responds with moralizing, unsolicited fix-its or quiet relish. Why? Because your loss temporarily relieves their fear of being the only one who fails. If you recount a success, do they celebrate or do they immediately compare? Qualify or warn? Both responses point to a scoreboard mentality. Online behaviors offer clues to look for cycles, curated highlight posts, followed by vague complaint posts, fishing for reassurance. Then a burst of defensiveness if feedback isn't purely positive. The humblebrag study I mentioned earlier documented how common this pattern is on social media and how poorly it works for earning goodwill. If someone routinely disguises self-promotion as hardship, you can infer a need to display worth while shielding against criticism. Context matters. Culture, neurodiversity, and stress can shape these signals. For instance, a reserved style isn't automatically avoidant attachment. It might be temperament or social norms. Likewise, perfectionism can be a craftsperson's pride rather than fear. The key is clusters and consistency across contexts. The more domains a pattern shows up in, and the more it intensifies when status or closeness changes, the more likely you're seeing insecurity management rather than a situational quirk. So what do you do with this knowledge? First, match your response to the function of the behavior, not the form of it. If the function is approval-seeking, feed clarity, not the addiction. Thank them once. Don't overreact. If the function is control, set boundaries calmly and repeat them without If criticism detonates them, replace global judgments with specific behavioral feedback and give them time to metabolize it. Second, don't mistake insecurity for harmlessness. Yes, it's common and human. It can also become corrosive when it drives sabotage, gossip, or withdrawal that punishes closeness. Use distance where needed. You can be compassionate without signing up for their constant validation loop. Third, keep an eye on your own signals. Most of us show hidden insecurity sometimes. The antidotes are boring and powerful. Ask for what you want directly instead of hinting. Take feedback in small bites. Tolerate the discomfort of, say thank you without a disclaimer when praised, and brag less, build more. Even the humble bragging research boils down to sincerity. People prefer honest self-disclosure or third-party credit over disguised self-promotion because it reads as secure. Finally, don't over-index on any single cue. Use a pattern-based checklist in your head. Do they need the spotlight to feel okay? Do they treat boundaries as optional when status is at stake? Do they wobble when the audience changes? Do compliments, critiques, and closeness create outsized reactions? Are their claims propped up by constant signals rather than steady work? The more boxers you tick, the more you're seeing insecurity in action. Spotting these signs lets you choose wiser replies. You can step around the trap of feeding the need for constant validation. You can refuse the tug into petty comparison. You can protect your time, and you can still leave room for people, including yourself, to grow into quieter confidence, the kind that doesn't have to broadcast because it isn't trying to convince itself.